What's going on, guys? Welcome back to United View. Hope everyone is doing very well. Welcome back to another edition of Trafford Talk. Yes, we are back. International break is gone. Our break is gone, which is a little international break we had. But now we're back, and just in good time, because it is about 48 hours away from Manchester United versus Chelsea at Old Trafford. Yes, bringing the enthusiasm. And we've got a lot to talk about before then. Big up James, of course, from the Muppeteers. Links in the video description below. As per usual, be sure to show some love and be sure to subscribe. Ooh, we got some stuff to talk about. We're going to be talking about Ruben Amorim. Of course, if he does have 3 games possibly to save his job, according to some reports, we're going to be talking about how Manchester United are making record revenues under Inios and losses come down, what that means for the future. And also, of course, we're going to be talking about Manchester United versus Chelsea and everything else in between that happens. Good evening, James.
Hello.
How are you feeling 48 hours away from Chelsea at Old Trafford? Are we into make or break territory with Ruben, or has that been overblown, do you feel?
To a degree, I feel decent about the team, actually, but I just feel exhausted with everything around it at the moment already. It's so early and it's so soon, and I just, because you start to think like, I worry more these days about how toxic it is after we lose than the actual loss itself. I'm used to losing, but having to spend the entire next 7 days, these long days in between games with nothing going on and no midweek games and none of that, and just having to talk about it over and over and over. Yesterday, I was doing a live and I was like, listen, an hour in, I was like, I really want to be able to talk about something else besides, every point, every discussion. Well, Ruben's going to get sacked and Ruben this. And I'm like, all right, I get it. But like, I can't do it. I can't do it every single day, every single hour, and have it be underneath every single point. It's like, talk about financials. Yeah, but Ruben is, and oh man, I'm trying to talk about something completely different right now.
I know.
I actually feel good about the team. I think I don't feel that bad about the way we're playing. If you can, clear your mind a little bit.
Elaborate on why that is, because the game against City, for me, it wasn't like, say, when we played Burnley, when you go, look, first half we were good, we showed stuff, second half wasn't that much. We just didn't really show anything against Manchester City of substance. And I guess the natural concern is you go up against a Chelsea side that might even, dare I say, even be better than City at the moment. I suppose it is at home, but that does lead one to have some concerns, doesn't it?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, to a degree, I look at it and I go, last year, we beat City early on, and Ruben Amorim's tenure away from goal. It was very exciting. It was very impactful. And then we were complete shit still, it's we've done this before for so many times where we tend to overrate the impact of big games when it's the small ones that kill us over the course of a season. Yeah. We used to win big games. We had a lot of seasons of winning big games under Solskjaer where we were kind of mediocre the rest of the year, where we couldn't put it together against small sides, where we lost in the cups and we lost in the finals, and then against under Ten Hag, I think even in that first season we had 0 away wins against the top 8. His entire tenure, 0 away wins against the top 8, but we did win 2 trophies, and we had a better league position because we were beating the small sides week in and week out. And we do have a tough start. I mean, 3 of our first 5 games coming against teams we're probably not expected to beat does go a little under the radar, kind of in factoring into this whole manager conversation. Ruben Amorim's not going to lose his job because he's losing to Arsenal, City, or Chelsea. If we lose his job, it's going to be, well, what happens against Burnley? What happens against Fulham? What happens against Sunderland? What happens against Brentford? Those are the ones we can't lose. Those are the ones we have to win. Those are the ones that have to be successful. And I actually think we're going to win all those games. I think we're going to beat Sunderland, and I think we're going to beat Brentford, because I don't think we're a bad team against small sides or smaller sides. I think there's a lot we can bring to the table there. So I don't know. I'd be okay if we lost every game against the top 6 this season. If we beat everyone else, in the, I'd be fine with that. But we'll see. And I do think we're okay in those games. I think we'll be fine there.
Yeah, I think this is where it comes into it. The 3 games to save Amorim whole discussion. I think that I mentioned this a few days ago. I think the reports have been quite overblown when it comes to that.
Yeah.
They framed it like it's this. Amorim's almost been given this ultimatum of you got to get X amount of points over the next 3 games or you're out of here. I think it's just more so based on logic, like you're sort of saying that. Look, if we lost the next 3 games, naturally there will be huge conversations about his future because the sample size is a bit bigger. You're now getting into the season a bit more. You're losing against newly promoted sides at home or not picking up points against newly promoted sides at home in Sunderland. Brentford, you're probably expected to win, even though it's away from home. So I think it's just logic that in the next 3 games will be quite critical to his future because he's got to start winning at some point. And if he doesn't start winning now, when is it going to happen? So I don't think there's been that much of an ultimatum given to him. But I really don't know. My worry is that, because it's amazing how you can block stuff out of your mind. Like I forget sometimes that he has been here. We're closing in on, was it like 10 months? It's nearly getting to like a year.
Yep.
And when people do mention it's been like 50 games, and we were looking this morning through the results towards the latter half of last season, a lot of Reds, there. And there is this worry that I have of just like, has too much happened? You know what I mean? Has too much, have we lost too much that even, is it possible to get
that's
that
honestly
mentality?
a bit, yeah,
You know what I mean?
that's honestly a bit of my fear. Because let's say for a moment, the stats are good and the things are good. Even if you kind of believe he could turn it around, I am worried we've just lost too many games and that mentally it's just too late for everybody and there's nothing you can do but change. The problem with that assumption is it's the assumption that changing the manager is going to fix that. If it's too much, if you've had too many losses and you're too broken, because I see the same thing in the players. Too many years of defeats, too many years of losses, too many years of bad things happening. It's not like they've just been there in one season. And you have to realize too, like from their perspective, there's been a lot of seasons where we finished higher up the table that they didn't like get off the hook because we finished in 6th or 7th or 8th or 5th, where people might be kind of happy for us to be now and showing progress. Those seasons were considered failures. It felt like, I'll give you the example, after we lost the Europa League final under Solskjaer, it felt like we lost a lot more than that mentally. It felt like they were really damaged the next season. Like all that mental strength was gone. And if you feel like what if we'd won that under Solskjaer and went into the off season with a trophy and with this and that, and instead it was like, it's just never going to happen, is it? It's just that feeling. It's just never going to happen. We had a good season. We still can't get it over the line. We've still got a lot of players playing week in and week out in the starting lineup who were there since then. And they were kind of broken that season. I mean, I remember it was a really bad season from Bruno. It was a really bad season from Maguire. It was a really bad season from Shaw the season after that.
Yeah.
And I kind of just see the same things repeating with some people. And that can be really difficult. But I do worry that pain, it exists among plenty of the players as well as it does the manager.
Yeah, I think. What did you make of that this week as well? Because naturally, with that, then we hear the reports and the articles about some players are losing faith, or even Bruno. Bruno doesn't like playing deeper when he has sort of stated on the record that he thinks that's where his career is going as he gets older and he's into his 30s at this point. But what have you made of that as well? Are we into that territory? Where players are losing faith and. It's about someone else coming in, fresh ideas or ideas that they agree with more so than being fresh. Is that where we're at?
Well, not really, but at the same time, I do believe that the club have a bit of concern over why some of these stories have come out again when they've cleaned out so many players, because there were legitimacy to these stories in the past. That doesn't make them acceptable for what it's worth. Like I'll never agree with the things, the players don't want to play because you don't play for the manager, you play for us. You play for the fans week in and week out. That's why I'd never accept those things. It doesn't matter. You can't give up. There's no excuse for lack of effort. There's no excuse for lack of focus. There's no excuse for any of those things. You play for the fans. Whether there's a manager or not, you have to play for the fans. You have to play fully. So most of those players that we've seen in years past are gone. There's still a few. I have my own suspicions because some have been here a really long time, and some of them have really yappy agencies and things. But I don't think we're really at the point where it's actually like, oh yeah, the dressing room is melting down on all of this and all of that. And I don't think any of that's actually true. It may be like one person. That's often how it gets represented. Like one person has a little story, and then it's like, oh, it's everybody, and it's things like that.
Yeah, I agree. I think with these kind of stories, you have to sort of remember that there's no such thing as like a totally unified dressing room. Very rarely. I'm sure there are people within Manchester United at the moment that are like, to be honest, I don't think Ruben's all that, because it's inevitable just by sheer numbers. Most likely there's going to be some people that are like, yeah, I don't really rate it, or I'd rather not be playing, I don't know, in a back three or as a wing back or as a 10. You know what I mean? There's probably people that are like that. And there's probably some people still there that they're like, I really liked Eric. Or like you said, I really liked Ollie or what have you, because that's just how it goes. I do think, and this has come from someone that's been very critical, and I don't think that Amorim can turn it around, that I do think that a lot of the reporting this week feels like it was probably saved before that Burnley match. You know what I mean? Like, I think a lot of journalists expected to go into the international break with one thing happening. They went, pause that. We'll see what they do when they come out of the international break. We lose. It's like, right, these articles, go, go, go. So I think it's probably something like that. But look, when it comes to the weekend and when it comes to, problems going forward, of course there are going to be speculation surrounding it, right? Of course there's going to be that. And it's just inevitable, particularly when you're losing. I don't see. I think people have overbuilt this idea that, it's 3 games left, 3 games to save his job. This is what it's going to be, because of course that's what it's going to be, because after that it's the international break. And if Man United going into the international break with the form that we've demonstrated at the moment, a point per game, there's going to naturally be a lot of speculation. When we looked at what was really interesting, actually, when we looked at the last season's results this morning, there was a thing that said like where we were in the table after that result. And pretty much from around this time of the year, we were in and around sort of 14th, 15th.
Yeah. We went into the next break on 8 points after 7 games last season.
Yeah. And we
that's
were in and around that spot.
That's when they started getting really worried about Ten Hag, and they're like, all right, we need to start. They had that meeting, where they were filming these Sky Sports outside the offices for hours. Like, what's going on here? And they didn't sack him, but they did start the process of looking and re-engaging with people in that international break that came in October. And I would say I could see it being somewhat similar in that respect. Yeah, if we go into the next one, 3 more points, that's it. Lost to Chelsea at home, get battered. Lost to Brentford, maybe get 1 win against Sunderland, and that's it. And we're still winning 1 out of 3 and losing the other 2 games, and we're at 7 points. They're going to start saying, okay, we're probably not sacking him during this break, but we need to start thinking about it, because it comes down to league form. And so it's less 3 games to save his job and more like he's in the job, but 3 more bad games would take him out of safety and into danger. So he's not safe. It's just he can. It's more like 3 games till you're sacked. You know what I mean? Like 3 games till you're in the danger zone is really the truth of it. How they're going to see it.
Yeah, no, it's exactly. And I think that I do think, again, all of that speculation is quite interesting. Of course, there's been all this talk this week about how much it would cost to sack him and all that kind of stuff, and if Manchester United could afford it. But then I think it was Rich Fay right today, that effectively it will get weighed up as, if it gets to the point where, is it expensive to let him go, what have you, they'll just look at it and say, look, we want to qualify for the Champions League or European football.
Or Europe at minimum.
If we don't qualify, that will cost us way more than 12 million. So it's effectively, it would still, if we brought someone else in and we ended up qualifying for Europe, that would still be worth the decision to make there. And on that, with Sir Jim saying, he thinks we could allegedly qualify for the Champions League with this squad. Do you buy that? Because Flex this morning was very insistent on, nope, this squad isn't good enough to qualify for the Champions League. No chance. There are better squads, better teams than us. Do you think that's realistic from Sir Jim if it's accurate based on the squad that we have?
It depends. Like, it is like, let's take for a moment and let's say they believe what they're saying and how they feel internally, which is that the stats are very good. Because if you look at the stats, United are performing like the second best team in England right now, pretty much. Maybe even the top of some of them, right? So if they believe that, yeah.
Not all of them.
I mean, no, not all of them, but a lot of them, to be fair. I mean, I looked at a lot of them, and it is kind of crazy. One of two things will go here is that, like, you look at all these stats and you say, well, they actually have the best press in England statistically. They have the second most expected goals. They have this, they have that. They have a lot of good stats, but there's two ways this goes when the stats are here and the results are here. One of them comes down or one of them comes up. It's one or the other. It's what always happens. You start off really strong, you don't get the wins, and then they don't match, and the stats crash and they start to meet your results, or the results come up to meet your stats, and it's one or the other. They're going to be believing one thing or the other, and their belief is that the results are going to come up and match the stats. So on that front, they probably do think we have the capability to get into the top 5. I don't think we can without some major assistance in January. I think we needed that when we were talking about Baleba. I was like, yeah, all right, we get that done. I think we got a serious chance. They left the keeper a bit late. That's hurt us already a few times. So I think they need more in order to get to that point, but they certainly believe we can be into Europe. They certainly believe we can be into Europe.
I think I could maybe see Europe. I don't know if Ruben Amorim can get us into Europe. I think Champions League, even regardless of if someone else came in to replace Ruben Amorim, I think is going to be a real tough ask. Because I just think there are better teams and, more importantly, better squads than us as well. And I know obviously we're playing one game a week, but even whilst we're playing one game a week, we are only a couple of injuries away from. We mentioned it against City when the team news came out. And you look towards our bench, you sort of went, actually, there's no real game changers already on our bench, and particularly game changers in this system as well. That's the other thing, isn't it? If like you go, all right, Cobby's on the bench, cool, and you go, yeah, but Amorim's already saying that Cobby's not going to really do what he wants to do. So is he going to shine? Is he a game changer off the bench? Probably not. Is Joshua Zirkzee coming off the bench a game changer? Probably not a game changer. I mean, he could probably knit the game.
I think it's like if the game's tight, you can use these guys to push a little advantage. But when you're not going to mount a big comeback with these players, I think. Is the main issue.
Exactly. And so I think that's something Champions League, I don't know. But then this is what was interesting about it as well when it comes to Ruben Amorim's future. The suggestion is that only when, Man United look like they're not going to qualify for the Champions League will they consider his future. But naturally, then the question becomes, okay, what's the cutoff point then? Because for some, that might be, well, I can already tell you now, we're not going to qualify for the Champions League. Others might be like, no, well, see it until the next international break or see it up until then. So I guess it just depends what the cutoff point is, basically, for Inios.
Yeah. Well, if you look at getting into Europe specifically, because they're not going to sack him if they're on pace for Europa League. And that's really the truth of it, is it all comes down to results. There's so much other nonsense that are being talked about why and reasons and this and that. It really comes down to, are we on pace to qualify for Europa League? Well, you essentially need like 1.7 points per game. That's what matters. You have to win enough games to be on like 1.7, because I think you have to get to like 60 something at the end of the season for most seasons to do it. So you look at the next break, you really need to be on 11. And I kind of have the same view, like 11 points. They're going to be like, cool, we're on track for where we're going to go. We're not far off. If you're on 9, you're still only one game off. So it's like, what is this cutoff point for them? Kind of depends. When you start to look at like, oh yeah, we're 8 points off the pace. We're 9 points off the pace. We're 10 points off the pace. That's when it starts becoming really problematic. Today, we're 1 game off the pace. You win against Chelsea, suddenly we're on pace for Europe again. So they're going to look at it like, okay, it is too early in their mind from a results standpoint. That's why the next break matters. But if you go on the next break, with like 4 or 6 points in 7 games, you're already 4 or 5 points off. And I think that's when you start get serious consideration over, is this gonna work or not? And the further the games go, the less time, right? The bigger that gap gets, the worse you're gonna be. The less time you have to fix it. So that's really how they're gonna see it, is that points per game. And what are we on pace for? One of those graphs that's like, what are we on pace to finish?
The problem is, at the moment under Amorim, just in the Prem in his whole tenure, it's a point per game,
it's
isn't
bad,
it? Which is
relegation. It's fucking bad.
And also it's and this is why I suppose where people push back as well, is they'll say, okay, because like you said, factually, it is accurate. If we beat Chelsea at the weekend, we're a point behind them. And then suddenly everything looks totally different, doesn't it? So you go, well, we're still just a win away from being fine. But under Ruben
Are we going to beat Chelsea?
We win about 1 game a month.
Yeah.
Is it Saturday going to be our time where it happens? We haven't won back-to-back Prem games. So that's I think we have to push back. Well, he does. He does as well. Well, here's the other point then. If he gets to this international break and he still hasn't done that back-to-back Premier League win,
I guess if you beat Chelsea and then Sunderland, it would be okay.
Then he gets away with it. Oh God, we didn't do it all last season as well. I didn't realize we didn't do it all last season.
No,
I forgot about that.
We won a lot of back-to-back games between the cups because we had a pretty good cup record between Europa, but not in the Premier League at all. Not at all. It's rough.
And it was the end of Eric's, like, that season where we won the FA Cup, the final 2 games of the season, and I forgot as well with that season, like, until like the last 3 games, we were 6th. Like, we were, Europa League, but not too bad. And then we just dropped out with those, with a couple of points to go, a couple of games to go.
It is. It is. There was a point, I think, in February where we won like 5 games in a row. It was like West Ham, Villa, something else. We won like 5. We went on a little run and we were like, oh shit, we might actually like be going for these Champions League spots. And then it just hit the skids again for like a few months, and then kind of settled out into a bad position. But yeah, it's not good. It's not good at the moment. It's stressful, man. I'll be honest. Like, I wake up in the middle of the night and I'm like, having to do this, having to talk about it. I just know how it's gonna feel. It's rough.
And it's funny just how the difference a couple of weeks can make, because I remember I would go through the summer, feeling all right, not too bad. Get into the first game of the season, go, you know what? Yeah, it's gonna be good. A couple of weeks later, we're back at it, back at each other's throats. And look, ultimately, we just want to win. Everyone just wants to win, don't we? We saw it in the international break. We won against Burnley. It wasn't pretty, but it did quiet things down. That is the ultimate metric.
You just have to win.
I know. Just got to win some games, and it will ease things down. Be sure to smash the like on the like button, folks. We're at 119 likes. If you haven't already clicked the like button, be sure to subscribe as well. We're going to talk numbers. We're going to talk revenue. I know you're a numbers guy,
love
James.
It
was announced.
I love the financial results
by Manchester United about record revenues. Was it £666 million? 0.5. Exactly, devil number. Losses we still made. Was it overall loss? I think it was like 30 odd million, something like that.
Yeah.
Something like along those lines, but down significantly. I think the number was like 73%. It was down. So surely, I mean, that would be positive coming out of it, right? Even though we spoke about this morning. Naturally, the assumption then comes to why was Sir Jim Ratcliffe saying we were going to run out of cash last year, and now we're making record revenue? Make it make sense.
Well, obviously, you have 2 sides of the balance sheet. You've got revenues and you've got expenses. Like, you can have high revenues, but we've had ballooning expenses as well, right? We've had the highest squad cost for a long time. We've just dropped to the 5th highest squad cost.
Yeah,
which is
below
big.
Arsenal,
it's the first, the first time ever. Yeah, we're like on pace with Newcastle and such. And it was interesting because before these results, I went last week and did some research on that for a video, and I watched like Liverpool and Arsenal when they were rebuilding. They were around 5th in wage costs. They never rebuilt from trying to have the most expensive squad. They built along that line, and then now they've invested really heavily to get up there. But it's expenses. Our revenues were high, but our expenses were just as bad, just as high. And that's really what's been killing us is the expenses. I mean, we've certainly not had the squad to justify the biggest wages in England at any point, right? And there was a point last season where like half the squad, half the wages were being wasted on players out on loan, on stuff like that. Like, it's crazy the amount we were spending for nothing. And then you look at the expenditure within the club in terms of like the staff numbers, which we all know, and it's unfortunate that people lost their jobs because of it. But I think the point you can kind of see is after all those cuts, after all those job losses, we're still losing money. So without changing all of that, it would have been, I mean, essentially disastrous, you know, from that standpoint, when you look at the amount that was saved on all of this. And, you know, in terms of the running out of cash thing, I don't know. I mean, I think the money, there's obviously always going to be a little bit of PR in a statement and things like that. But I look at it and I go, they ended the year with 70 million in the bank. They actually had to increase the credit line still, like another 70 million. And he put 80 in. We would have run out of money technically. There's always ways to raise more cash. You can always borrow more. You can always do that. But if we didn't borrow more, we still would have ran out of money after all these cuts in terms of cash. So I think there's a little PR, there's a little bit of creative license that someone's going to give and things like that. But I do think they genuinely were just all necessary. And I do think the club would have been in trouble, because it's not like you could say we can not run out of money. Yeah, if we don't buy players, and then what happens? You know, then where do we end up as a club and as a team? We could just not buy players. That is optional. We could not spend 200 million in summer, but then we're never going to get anywhere. You know,
I think
solidify as a mid-table club forever.
Yeah, I think with, you know, what he was saying, I do believe it was likely in response to, again, a lot of negative press and PR that was surrounding that, which I get, because obviously nobody likes to see people lose their jobs. As I've mentioned a million times, if there's ever mergers, acquisitions, minority investments, unfortunately, redundancies are just kind of par for the course. It just
every time.
What they say, synergy costs. It always is, you know, the case of people come in, reevaluate how big's that department, only needs half the people to operate it, etc., etc. It's always the way. And like you say, this is something that people have asked for a long time, which is, look at our squad costs versus performance in the league. It doesn't line up. You know, okay, Man City had the highest wages in the league, but they were winning the treble a couple of seasons ago. That probably makes a lot of sense. With us, it doesn't make a lot of sense. So I do think actually the numbers that came out yesterday are actually very, very positive. It's just it's the backdrop against it, isn't it? That's always the case. It's the backdrop. If we were in the top four at the moment, and then it gets released, actually, you know, our finances are looking a bit better. They were right. In a couple of years' time, we're going to get to a profitable place, because that's something that Omar Barada, when he's done a lot of his interviews recently, he's been saying that in 2 or 3 years, we think we're going to be making a profit, which for United is, you know, that hasn't happened in quite some time. Like, all of that is really good news. And I know that you've mentioned it before. When we go into these transfer markets, we shouldn't even debate about whether we can afford.
I don't want to talk about it anymore. PSR,
exactly.
That,
it shouldn't even be a conversation with us. You know, I know obviously these teams that are struggling with PSR moan about us at the moment, going, they've got all of this debt and they can go and spend 200 million, but PSR doesn't work like that. We should never have an issue, because it is based on how much you make and how much you lose and what have you. Our revenue streams are so big, so vast, that we should be able to dominate people when it comes to the transfer market. But we can't, because, like you said, our expenses are just so out of control that we do have to debate. Like, we do have to have like a January transfer window, like we did before, going, can we afford 20 million for Patrick Dorgu? Like, that shouldn't even be a conversation.
And he's on like bottom wages and stuff, you know, because you look at things like that, and it does have a huge impact on the football. How many Januaries have we gone over the years and gone, wish we could buy somebody because it might help us with the push in the second half of the season. And instead it's like, oh yeah, well, here's a loan for Sabitzer. Here's a loan for Weghorst. Here's a loan for, you know, Igalo. Like, no disrespect to these guys, but that's not what we needed to get where we need to be. The last time we actually did go and spend big in January was Bruno, of course, under Solskjaer. And it had a decent number of parallels to this season. It was a really rough start. We were really looking pretty bad that year. We survived till January. Bruno came in, and the rest is history. We pushed ahead. You know, you had COVID and stuff come up in the middle, ended up in the top 4 by the end of that season because we could go get a player we really needed. You know, regardless of manager, you need that. You have that ability. We had to play Andres Pereira, and he was putting in some of the worst performances we'd ever seen in the 10 that season.
That starting
it was rough.
11 under
It
Ollie.
was so rough.
Oh
man.
my God, they're brutal. Absolutely.
It was brutal. It was brutal. So we got Bruno and he carried us and it made a difference. Well, that has an effect on football because when you don't do that, well, then maybe you miss out on Europe. But that's your whole next season is affected by that, you know? And that's how it can be sometimes. This January, we spoke to Cunha. Couldn't afford him, so ended up signing a new deal with this release clause so we could get him summer. But what if we'd had Cunha for the rest of the season for the Europa League final, had some actual attacking options to come in? What if we've been able to, I'm not saying it's necessarily the right choice now, but what if we've been able to buy Ollie Watkins for 50 million in January? So we had a striker last season because he was still decent, you know, and had him for the final. It can change a lot, but we couldn't. Now at least we can. So I kind of see it like fixing the finances doesn't win you games, but you certainly can't win with broken finances. You have to balance the books to be able to build a team. And I think that that's kind of done. I mean, when I did the math on the PSR, there's no limits anymore. The handcuffs are completely off in that respect. United, even without Europe this season, will be able to pretty much spend whatever they need in January and in summer. So whatever has to happen, at least we don't have to go, can we afford it? We can. Let's go get it done then.
Yeah,
you know,
that's really positive. I mean, because how often, you're right, particularly in January, so many times we've heard it. I remember we were going after, it was like Cody Gakpo's coming to Man United. He's coming to Man United after the World Cup. You know, Erik ten Hag was there. There was even the story about Louis van Gaal leaving his phone in a toilet, and it said Manchester United missed call because apparently just Manchester United in his phone book, not the specific person, just Manchester United. And then he went obviously to Liverpool, and it kind of came out that then just like, no, we were never really in for him because we couldn't afford him. It's always, and I always say it in these transfer windows, there is like a select pool of players are available. They're available for whatever reason. And basically it's just which club can actually afford to do the deal. And for us, for so long, it's no, we can't afford to do that. We have to wait till the summer. We just go from summer to summer to summer. And like you said, for years, I think the Glazers had spun it as it's not a good market. It's not a good market.
Yeah, we do our business in the summer windows.
We don't.
You overpay too much.
You overpay, and it's like, well, we Manchester United, we overpay in any transfer window that we've operated in, right?
We've got some of our best players in January historically we've got some really good players in January.
Exactly. So, you know, hopefully we do participate in that, and I guess for whom is going to be the big discussion point, whether it's going to be for. Well, I suppose that it doesn't matter, does it? If it's for Ruben or if it's for someone else, it's
doesn't
for Manchester
matter.
United.
It's agnostic, and that's the other part of it. I think it's improved. That I do think is better in all of this discussion. We're not buying players for Ruben Amorim. If Ruben Amorim is here in January, cool. If he's not, and we get somebody else, we're still going to need a midfielder, maybe even more so. Frankly, the same positions are going to be targeted. The same players are going to be targeted. The same ideas are going to be targeted, and that's important too for that continuity. That we're not going to go backwards, and the squad turnover, you know, is going to move forward, knocking them dominoes down until they feel they've built the squad they want at the end of it.
Yeah, I agree. Speaking of the team at the weekend, because again we're playing Chelsea. That's the same response every time.
It's every single time.
Every single time we're playing Chelsea. Yeah.
Okay.
There's some key personnel decisions that Ruben has to make. Let's start once again in goal, because, like we said last week, we knew going into the game it was going to be Bayern, even before he's confirmed it in his press conference. You're like, it's not going to start Lommens in goal. Now, a week removed and a week of training. I've seen the reports. Lommens has dazzled people in training. That's what they dazzled. He's been doing dazzling.
To be fair, didn't it come from Tom Heaton? So it's actually
exactly
a decent an actual keen observer, not some random anonymous report.
Exactly. He's dazzled in training, and are we now to the territory of like, well, what can you lose? Well, he makes a mistake and we lose. We've been doing that anyway.
Yeah, we're losing
why not?
Anyway.
Why not? So, what do you think happens?
He's got to start. He's got to start. I mean, I even look at that game against City and I go, it's not like Bayindir covers himself in glory in that game from a keeper's perspective as well. You know, you look at Donnarumma and you think he does probably make just one really good save, the one against Mbumo, but that's a game-changing save too. You know, the way that the game swings on those moments. And I'm not even saying he shouldn't save it, but we've yet to have a keeper do one thing this season where you go, thank God we've got a goalkeeper.
Yeah,
it's like not once have they
not
a single save. It's like the only things they save are like, oh, it's right at his hands. You know, shot comes in right here. You know, there's nothing special. There's nothing special going on at any point in time. And you think on maybe Haaland's first goal, he could be cutting angle better. He's like flat to the ground when that shot comes in. Maybe he can do a little bit better there. Just something, just bail us out one time, because it happens to us all the time that the opponent's keeper bails them out. That's why you've got a keeper. Otherwise, what's the point in the first place? You do want them to prevent goals. So, yeah, I don't think it can be any worse because, like you say, we lose every week. So just go for it.
That's what I mean. That's what I mean. I mean, I'll tell you what I did notice as well, actually, when we played City. Do you notice how often Donnarumma punched the ball as well?
Yeah.
Crosses and corners.
Oh, yeah. Every time he's out there.
I thought that's nice, isn't it? I thought that's nice.
Between Donnarumma and Haaland, there was no way we were getting across in the box between those two giants in there. Like, that would be nice.
It was so frustrating. There was a period of time where Erling Haaland must have headed it like 10 times in the space of like 2 minutes. Every time a cross came in, it was like, oh, it's ridiculous. And look, if Lawrence can do something like that with Donnarumma, where it felt like every cross or corner he came out and punched, that makes such a difference. That makes such a
mentally
difference.
too. Like,
you
know, it was interesting listening. Like Bernardo Silva was doing a thing saying, like, having Donnarumma in there because he's so big, he thinks makes the other teams think differently about how they shoot because you're only aiming for the corners because you don't think you can beat him anywhere else because he's just so massive. There's such a mental effect that keepers have. And Lamans, I mean, Bayindir's tall. Lamans is about, I think, probably about the same size. They're both kind of big, but the actions the keeper do make people think twice instead of thinking once. Nobody has to think twice when they're putting a shot against Bayindir right now or putting a ball in the box. You don't have to think he's going to do anything.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and every time there is a corner or a set piece, you can feel it. Everyone gets anxious. The players, the keeper, the fans, because everyone knows what's going to happen. Either it's going to lead to a goal or there's going to be some form of scramble that's going to happen. And if you do have a goalkeeper that's going to come out and collect or punch it, there can be this element of being defeated before you've even put the ball in the box. Oh, it doesn't matter. He's going to come out and claim it or whatever. So, yeah, I agree with you. I think Lomans, I don't see why not. Whether or not Ruben does put him in,
I know. It kind of felt like the comment he made last week was so that we don't discuss it for last week. But I almost feel like that's an indication that it's not going to be that way in the future and that he's just making it clear we just need to give Lomans time. So we're not going to pick him this week. But I hope he does. I mean, again, like you say, something's got to look. There's something's got to change. Something has to change, and I will add to that. Like when we talk about the that 3 games to save his job. Just going back to that quickly, how it might affect things like this. It's not really the case. However, this goes over a little bit unpopularly because of other reasons. But I was kind of saying the other day that Sir Jim, in a way, should be fans' best friend because he's kind of separate from the football people, and he's a fan. And he's sitting and you see him watching the games like, like
miserable, didn't he?
Miserable. And he's an old guy and he's trying to build and he wants results. And I mean, he wants us to win. And so he's not going to sit there and be like, oh, sack the manager and I know better. But there's certainly some pressure to do something. And I was kind of thinking about this, like, at the end of Ten Hag's season, if you recall, like things were bad, right? Before the FA Cup, we had all this reports, like he got together with Wilcox and was like, is there something we can do different to win these games? And we made a couple of little tweaks.
Yeah.
And then
I remember hearing that.
We made some tweaks and we won the cup and we won the final games. And sometimes it was just like we dropped Rasmus and we put Bruno on or put Scott on or something like that, or Amrabat in. However, we made the change. We just really changed personnel, but it changed the way that the team was shaped and set up because we didn't have Rasmus on the pitch. and they played better and they did better and they won games. And I could see a little bit of that happening. And I don't think he's going to change his system, but I do think that a little bit of pressure to change personnel does change your system in a sense, because different attributes do change the way you play on the pitch. And some of that might be, yeah, getting a more commanding keeper. Let's get him in there because we're losing. What are we picking here? All these kinds of discussions. So I think there's a little pressure. So I'm feeling a little more optimistic this week that he's going to change his team without changing his system, just because there's a little extra pressure to get some results and get together and figure out how can we fix this, and start getting some wins. So I'm a little more optimistic he'll make a change there than I would be.
Actually, you bring up a good point there, because I remember, obviously he's mentioned many a times, so I know, I'd let the football people do the football stuff. But then there have also been reports where he has kind of put his foot down and gone like, this is shit, basically.
Yep.
Or like with the old, like with the Dan Ashworth thing of like,
yep.
You're saying this, I don't agree with that, so then you should probably go.
Yep.
And I remember, actually, this was before even Man United, was even really on his radar, and he was just a fan. He did an interview or something like that, and he was talking about going, with his drinking with his mates and saying Fred was shit or something like that.
Yeah.
And it did stick with me at the time, because I thought, well, he must still then think that about some players at Man United now. Like,
he'll bring it up.
So he must be like, so again, with the goalkeeper situation, it was reported that, he then agreed with Jason Wilcox's recommendation that Onana had to go and they needed to get a new goalkeeper after the Bayern Deer stuff in the Arsenal game. So surely there must be a sort of, that situation must be raised when Jason Wilcox is having these meetings with Ruben Amorim of like, Bayern Deer obviously starting a goal, but he's crap. You know what I mean? Yeah. Onana's rubbish. We need to move him on. So if they've put it this way, if they've recommended to go get another goalkeeper because what they had wasn't good enough, surely it's a matter of time before the new goalkeeper starts.
And we've got nothing to lose, like you say, because we keep losing every week. So it's like, just do it, And so I do think, given the pressure, given the fact that we're losing games, we're more likely to make some switches now, personnel-wise, than we would be. If we beat City, you'd probably still see Bayindir in net and give him more time. But we didn't, and we've lost again, and we have a big game. And it's like, at least if you make the change, you're doing something to try and fix the situation. Not just there, in other positions, obviously, can be taken into account as well. But yeah, you're right. The ownership were on board and a factor. I mean, look, so Jim was the guy who said, let's just go pay the money for Mbeumo, get it over the line when they were kind of like getting stuck with Brentford. He will put pressure to just get something done, to get an end result. And you do want that from your ownership, because it's better they care about winning than don't care about winning and just care about the money. He cares about winning. So there's going to be a bit of pressure to change things. And I think that there's a chance they do change things. And I also got to say that the way that the communication occurs, it's not like Sir Jim to Omar, to Wilcox, to Ruben. He's going to talk to all of them together now, and he has and will many times, all of them together. So it's not just like picking on one guy and making it like this big fights and things like that. It's like, guys, you need to fix this. So get together, the three of you, and do something about it to get a result. So hopefully something changes on that front.
Geezy says Amorim made some revolutionary transfers this window, but plays Shaw to kill all hopes. It doesn't make sense. Do you think Shaw starts against Chelsea? I mean, because he's stuck with that back three, hasn't he? Pretty much the whole season so far. He likes the balance, but I mean, he really stunk it up against City.
Oh, it was so bad. It was so bad. And now that you have Mazraoui as well, he really likes Mazraoui, right? He does.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things to his detriment that he's getting wrong is he's trying to force players he likes into the team to make sure, like, if I've got experienced players, leaders, veterans, and I can put them in the team, it's going to help us with this mental problem. But the Premier League is too difficult for that. You can't put players in positions they're not strong in just because they're good mentally. You know what I mean? They're because they're leaders. But he really does like Mazraoui. I think Mazraoui could easily go into that back three and is a lot better than Luke Shaw in that back three. As a wing back, absolutely not. But as a back three, Yoro, De Ligt, Mazraoui is probably our best back three from a player perspective right now. So I'd like to see that, because then you get some leadership at the back. I think he's really good facing the game up. And I never see Mazraoui switch off like Luke Shaw does. And so I think that gives us an option if he's worried about the inexperience of Aiden Heaven.
Yeah, but then I suppose the question is, what do you do with the wing backs, right? Because Dorgu? Does he go with Ahmad at right wing back? Because there's even a real conversation at the moment going like Ahmad's, he hasn't started the season really well at all, and
yeah,
a couple of times last season, Ruben brought him off the bench, and sometimes he's effective coming off the bench. Maybe he needs to be taken out of the spotlight a little bit, right? Because Ahmad's just not really at it at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about it, though, is everybody remembers this from last year. When he starts at wingback, it's a lot better. Like, we never win when Mazraoui starts at wingback. We never win. I'm not saying we win a lot, but, like, we literally never win.
No.
We win 0 games when we play fullbacks at wingback. We win a lot more, even though we don't win a lot. Like, it's definitely a better win percentage when you get Ahmad out there because it's more of a threat. Like against Burnley, he was doing really well with Mbeumo. I know he missed the goal, but he was doing well. I was really shocked he changed that dynamic after Burnley because they were producing against Burnley. That was maybe the best thing we had in that game. And then against Fulham, where he was also rough, he also again, I know it's Grimsby rather. Even against Grimsby, he starts in 10. With Dalot outside of him, and it was awful, even against a 4th-tier side, which there's no real excuse for that. But I think he's got to start out wide. The system and the way that Ruben plays is definitely way too defensive when you don't put an attacker out there. It's way too defensive. We don't have the pace. I remember looking into the game and seeing so many times, like, even regardless of like how they're doing in the game, you'd have all these times where Mazraoui's trying to get up at wingback, but he's just too slow. And he's just too defensive to do it. And he can't run by anybody. And it just doesn't work. It becomes really defensive without him. So I think you kind of just have to do it and suffer through it at the moment.
I'm surprised how much Ruben's actually like persisted with that because, like you said, he's played him there so many times, and every single time it doesn't work. And yet, I literally predicted that he was going to do that against City because I thought he'll play him there because it's City away, and he'll just think, well, back 5, basically get behind the ball, but it just negates any attacking threat. And that was also the problem against City, wasn't it? Is when we did win the ball in good areas, because we did, particularly in the first half, we did actually win the ball in some half decent areas. There was no red shirts forward. Wasn't enough. There wasn't enough red shirts forward, and you felt like it was going to be difficult to create. With that said, then we move into midfield. What do we think Ruben does there? I mean, does he go? I was quite shocked that when I saw Bruno Ugarte at City. I mean, I suppose maybe I shouldn't be. I just thought, he'll go with Bruno Casemiro because that's what he's been going for. And particularly because he has not picked Ugarte for big games so often. Yeah. I was quite surprised by that.
Yeah, it was Ugarte, a bit too.
Yeah, did some say good, some say bad. What do you think he does on Saturdays? Does he go back to Bruno Cass? Or does he try
honestly, it's frustrating. I feel as though I honestly don't know what he does, but we can't. Something has to, I think, change on the Bruno midfield front, like because I get why he likes him there. With the way that he can face the game up. And one thing he is doing quite well, Bruno, right now, is getting that ball out wide for those quick attacks and things like that from that deeper position. He is doing that really well. But the out of possession is so bad in an already, it is a 2-man midfield. You do have to be even better out of possession than a 3-man midfield. You do. I don't think that you should drop it down and give people excuses just because it's playing that way, because even a 4-4-2 is a 2-man midfield when you think about it. You still have to bring players in from the outside when you're getting overloaded and such. But the out of possession is so bad. You go, I don't know. Last year, I thought he found the winning formula with Casemiro and Ugarte at one point and Bruno in the 10. And we did that through all these rounds of Europe. And then he changed it. Yeah, and exactly. And won with multiple games with that during his interim. And then he just changed it because I think then you get Casemiro's defensive solidity. He's a bit deeper. He kind of sits there. He has a good eye for danger. And then you let Ugarte kind of run around and do what he does best without him needing to be the coverage for the other guy. But we haven't done it. And I don't know why we've never even gone back to trying it because I think it was our most solid, at least stable midfield at that point in time. But I don't think it'll be Bruno Ugarte again. That's for sure. I'd like to see
I'm
Casemiro and Mainu. I'd like to see some different things, be
yeah.
tried there. Something different though has to happen in this.
Yeah, I don't think Cobby starts. I'd be surprised by that. I think
Yeah,
and it was always my concern with Bruno in the deeper, is I just said I didn't think he could play there. I didn't think he could be disciplined enough, and I think that you sort of cut away his most positive attributes. And I do think that Ruben has just seen, because he's mentioned it when he's been talking about Cobby, when he's talking about, you've got to cover a lot of ground. He says, I want my midfielders to cover a lot of ground. And obviously you look at Bruno and his heat map in football matches, he's all over the place. He covers a lot of ground. And I think that that's what Ruben likes. Bruno can get up and down. He can be all over the pitch, cover lots of ground, and he likes that. And like you said, he's got that kind of long passing, or he'll try stuff so he can progress the ball forward quickly. So he likes all of that. But as we saw with the first goal, that defensive work that comes with being a midfielder, Bruno just doesn't have that. It's not his natural game. And at this point in his career,
he's not going to become that guy, is he?
No, to teach like midfield, defensive midfield instincts. I just don't think he's going to be that guy. Now, and again, I know Bruno's obviously, like, he can be very frustrating, particularly when he's not at it and he's trying stuff and he starts chasing the game. But in the 10, you're more comfortable with that. Like, I'm more comfortable when if he's in the 10 doing that or trying things or trying to chase, because that can lead to a goal. Whereas in midfield, that can just lead to disaster. But would that change come after? Because I don't know what the situation is with Cunha this week. I guess we'll find out tomorrow. Suggestion is, it might be close. Maybe makes the bench. Who knows? But when everyone's fit, does Bruno then go in where these two, you just signed, two players for like 150 million? It feels like a decision's already been made there, hasn't it? So how is he going to get back and go into number 10?
I don't know.
Unless whoever in the future goes back to like a 4-2-3-1, then Bruno's in the middle, and then you've got Mbeumo and Cunha like on either side, baby. I don't know. Otherwise, with Ruben's system, Bruno is gonna be an 8, and unless someone's missed from the 10s.
Because you do, exactly. Because it's like, well, even Mason Mount, you have a lot of options that he really likes in the 10. Yeah. And one of the thing, and the thing is that we're a little stuck here because to a degree, Bruno is the worst fit player for the system, because in the 10s, what does he want? He wants pace, he wants running, he wants a lot of those quick, sharp movements. He doesn't really want players dawdling on the ball. I'm not trying to even be insulting there, but like Bruno, when he gets it as a playmaker, he'll tend to drift out wide a little bit, get on the ball, look for the pass, move it around.
He's not gonna go at players, is he? Try and go past them?
No, he's not going to run past them. He's not going to. Look at how many times Mbeumo is making that run. Bruno can't. So you lose that threat that you want from the 10 because it's Bruno, and that changes the whole way that your dynamic works, and it changes the whole way teams defend you. And like against Burnley, the 10 minutes he went to the 10, we conceded 2 goals because they were able to push up really high because they weren't worried about him running in behind, and we ended up kind of losing control. It's not his fault. Like he wasn't bad in that game. He was actually quite good. But then we shifted back and we got back in control of the game. So it's just a bit weird, but I don't know. The whole thing has been on that front is confusing. I was kind of surprised. It looked like when we were targeting those 2 10s, well, yeah, we've got all this talk about Bruno going to Saudi, and it's like he's going to go. It makes sense. Then we go get a midfielder, and then all of it works together. It all works logically if Bruno leaves. Not to like put it all on him, but I'm saying from a balance and team perspective, it seems like we did this whole plan as if he was leaving.
Yeah. And then he just has to stay.
Which is kind of weird.
I mean, look, he's gonna start in the 8, probably, I think, alongside Casemiro. Then you get to your 10s, it'll be Mbeumo. Again, Cunha probably won't be back. So what are you looking at? Maybe Xerxes starts.
Yeah, with Xerxes in the 10 would have made a lot more sense. With Ahmad out wide would have made a lot more sense to me against City than what we did, because he's got good qualities coming into the middle. He supports the midfield a lot, and he's big, and he can win headers, and he's a good presser even as well. So that would have made a lot more sense. He's more naturally kind of like a big Mount in a way,
Yeah,
like, it's kind of how I see him.
Yeah, he would have ended up the play nicely, and then you get into Shesho up front, which obviously, look, so much has been made of him over the last week or so. Do you worry about him getting into, say, Hoyland territory? But it feels like it's already starting of the doesn't look confident, or he's not, because he genuinely, in that City game, in the second half, I forgot he was on the pitch at one point, because he's not going to touch the ball because he's not going to get any service. And then as games go on, it goes X amount of games without scoring. Because I look at, say, Arsenal with Gyökeres, and I've watched a couple of their games all the way through, and he's kind of the same. Like, he doesn't get a lot of the ball, and then you go, oh, he's not doing very well. But then he'll get a chance made for him, and he taps it in the back of the net, and you go, right, there you go. That's a player that's going to score goals. Whereas, like, if Shesho was playing for Arsenal at the moment, he'd have got those goals. But we're not creating those kind of chances for our strikers. We're having lots of shots, and our XG is high because, certain chances being made for other people, but not for a striker, And I do worry about that.
Me too. It's a little strange. Like, I'm fine with Mbeumo racking up chances because he's going to score a lot of goals, and he's getting most of our chances right now. But kind of the reason for that is Mbeumo's the guy making the runs. And in the game, before the game, Ruben Amorim said we need Shesho to be a runner. I'm not really seeing that, and I don't know who's to blame for it yet. He's not running. He's not running.
Can he be a runner as well? Is that like his game?
Supposedly he can. I mean, when I this was one of my concerns about buying him, is that he had these 2 seasons at Leipzig, right? It was Leipzig, right? Yeah. Anyway, he had these 2 seasons. One season he's the runner. The other season he's the guy playing off the runner, and it's Openda who's the runner and who's going forward. I was a little worried that he spent a whole year as the guy dropping and sending the runner on rather than being the guy running. He's very fast. A lot of the stats show he can and does make really fast, quick runs into the channel. Like, he's lightning fast, actually, for his size. He's really big. But he hasn't been doing it, and I don't know if he needs to. I don't know if it's instructional, or I don't know if he's just got to get into the rhythm of because if you watch Gyökeres, the one difference in there is he does what he's always done. He just runs. He's just constantly running. He never stops running, and that's what he is as a player. We kind of need that from Shesho. We need him to just run. I see it with Mbeumo. He's always looking to run in behind. I think he's already, Mbeumo, made the most runs in behind in the Premier League, which I think he was second last year. Sheshko's got to start running. And I can't say, I don't want to pin it on him yet, because maybe it's the team issue, but we do need him to make those runs in behind. It would be helpful if we could land a single cross inside the box. That might be good too,
I know. So, what always frustrates me is whenever, like, he's not on the pitch, you'll see a couple of big, like, swinging crosses go, and then you go, if he was there, if he was there, would have been perfect. Yeah. So there you go. A quickly final prediction for the game of the weekend. What are you going to go with? Like, it matters. We always. Oh, you got to go with a draw. You got to go with a draw.
Because you always want to predict a win, but I feel like it's bad if I do. I'm just 1-1.
I don't know. Like, I used to with Man United, like a year or so ago, I used to always go, look, when there's a bad result, that we always perform in the next game when we show a bit. But we kind of don't anymore. We just carry on. We haven't
lost to Chelsea in like 13 years at home, and that's terrifying.
These records, they don't matter at this point, do they? We'd never gone out to get to fourth tier side. Everything's up for grabs, isn't it? So, Steffi Jake says in the chat, go with a 2-1 and absolutely, it's going to be 2-1 Manchester United. Or if Lommans is playing 2-0, no, we'll concede. We'll definitely concede. Chelsea got too much, Chelsea got too much firepower. So I'm going to go with that. Or like a 1-1. I remember Rude drew 1-1 with him, didn't he, in his interim spell last year? It was a horrible game of football. But
which wouldn't be bad. If we can drag Chelsea down into the mud right now and get a point, I'm happy with that.
Of course. And like you said, then the pressure inevitably, because it always will be on the next 2 games, isn't it? Because it'll be like, wow, you can turn that point into a really good run into the international break.
And you have
or
to then. Yeah.
or it can be just 1 point. That's all you get. That's for some reason that's
Exactly.
Manchester United. So there you go, guys. Another episode of Trafford Talk. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe to United View. Be sure to subscribe to the Muppeteers. Links to the video description below. Show some love to James. We'll be back tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Flex and myself, and then we'll be back 4 p.m. for the Trinity tomorrow.
Am I back tomorrow as well?
Yes.
At the Trinity.
Of course you are. It's Friday.
Of course,
yes. Yeah, of course. We'll both be there. I think we'll be joined by KG tomorrow because Flex is.
We can finish our hate coins because we started that a few weeks ago. We only have our investments. We didn't do our anti-investments. So have to finish that conversation.
Yeah, we'll do our hate coins. There you go. We've already got the show lined up. Perfect. Anyway, guys, appreciate you joining in. Appreciate you tuning in. We'll be back tomorrow. We're out of here. Peace.